Starting a little early today. Hello, hello. And the reason for that is we are streaming today's class to YouTube as well. Hello, Ishan. बड़े कम लोग आते हैं भाई initially. Shri Patel. Hello, hello. First time I can read names. Pratik, Rushrag, Javed, Ankit. Bunch of highs and hellos. Hello from Canada. Well, what time is it in Canada right now? Probably early morning. How's it going? How's it going? Good, 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 good. Pretty chill class today. 9:30 a.m. Yeah, it's pretty early. I woke up at 4 today, so hello, hello, hello. Someone won one of the tracks in a Solana hackathon, guys, from the cohort. Forgetting the name, he won like 1 lakh rupees. Pretty good. Um, how many of you are active in Solana? There's this DAO, there's this company, something called Lampo DAO. They did a hackathon. Apparently won today. What am I going to tell you today? I'll just share screen in like 2 minutes. Fairly simple stuff, orientation, maybe 30 minutes of talking, and then we will be doing some code reviews, setting up a project, so on and so forth. So that's a high level. Can you use some alpha on Web3? Well, I don't know if you saw yesterday, but almost $1 billion were liquidated. There was a cascading liquidation. Market fell a bit. People were over leveraged. Leverage got called. Oh, Sector 67 Cibis Square I saw somewhere. Very close to my house. Harkiyat, I'm in 67 Civil Square. Where are you? I'm not here, but my house is in 67. So like I live very close. I had an office in Cibis when I was consulting. Logic building में problem आ रही है. Web3 for Web2 for quick money. Quick money is nowhere, but lucky money might be in Web3. But it's luck based. All right. Web3 cohort. Let's see soon enough. Soon enough. I'm compiling the syllabus right now. All right, I need to start streaming to YouTube as well. Let's see if things go well. Oh, wait. Share screen. If the class hangs in the middle, just go to YouTube today. And I'll just see you guys there and answer questions there. But can you see my screen right now? Yes or no? Web3 cohort after Web2, we'll see. It hung already? Yes. Alrighty, good to go. If anything goes down, let Rookie know on Discord. I have another laptop here. And he'll let me know. But yeah, I think if any stream is bad quality, let me know. Cool. You guys can see screen. So I think it's time for us to start the YouTube live as well. All right. Seeing a few people join there as well. I'm going to a little bit of a confused class is going to be because too many things happening. I'm going to open Q&A. Bye, can you share your screen again? What's up with Zoom? Every time I have to stop and reshare. Okay, I'll stop and reshare. There we go. All right, hi everyone on YouTube. And hi everyone in the class as well. I see a few people. We'll wait for 2 more minutes, then we will start as usual. We usually start at 6:03. But until then, let me open the Zoom chat. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know. This is the agenda for today. We have a very short class, maybe 30, 40 minutes of talking, and then we'll go from there. All right, few questions. Notion doc, I will take at the end of the class, maybe not right now. Completed the assignment. Let's see. Oh, nice. That sounds pretty good. Real-time Redis-driven WebSocket hub. Now, my only question is, did you use WebSockets or did you use Socket.io? Because Socket.io has a adapter that lets you do this very easily. Let's see. You did use WebSockets, so that's pretty cool. Later on, not right now. YouTube comments, I think I will only take at the end of the class. Right now, I'll just be going over the orientation. We'll start in another minute. Yeah. And if there's anything wrong, just let Rookie know on Discord, guys. He'll let me know, but I think seems pretty decent over here. I have a very weird setup. I have 2 laptops here, some food, iPad. Yeah, pretty messed up. All right, 7:02. We're on time. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the orientation class for 1 to 100. We weren't supposed to have a class this week. The reason was a Discord poll, which was heavily skewed towards a break. So this week is officially a break only. I don't think we'll have anything tomorrow unless we do an ad hoc session like this. Today, I just wanted to take an orientation class so that, next week onwards, we can purely focus on learning. So this is the 100x Devs cohort 2.0, 1 to 100 orientation class. What does 1 to 100 mean? It means the second part of the cohort where we'll be doing some advanced stuff. 0 to 1, even though it's officially complete, there are some videos that are being added. And throughout April, if you are in 0 to 1, you can attend live classes and get access to all the recordings. The things that we are going to discuss today include going over the things that are coming this week. So I'll be posting a bunch of offline videos. I'll just take you through what those are, the titles. Going over the syllabus of 1 to 100 one more time, understanding from a high level what is the goal of this part, how your learning might change a bit compared to 0 to 1. 0 to 1, at least if you were a beginner, might have been very grueling. 1 to 100, why might not be, because these things are less coding, more high level stuff. So yeah, just understanding that a bit. Knowledge dump, where to contribute. If you have gone through 0 to 1 really well or even moderately well, you should start to practice yourself. Where can you practice? And what are the repos that if you look at and can understand is when you can start applying. If you don't understand, then there is a knowledge gap. Going over some PRs and reviewing them on daily code. We did this on Thursday or Wednesday, I don't know, very randomly. I was working out of a cafe and I was on Discord active for something. And then for 1 hour, we just reviewed pull requests. I think it was a decent knowledge gaining, very passive knowledge gaining session where I'm just reviewing pull requests and telling what's right, what's wrong, merging, all that jazz. So we might do that today at the end of the class. Before that, we'll be setting up daily code as well. So some people that they only asked, okay, can you help us set up the project locally? Even though I wouldn't recommend, getting handheld setting up a project. This is the only thing that you shouldn't be handheld on. This is the thing that you should try yourself. I'll still take you through the steps, even though, it's just, I'll just be reading the README and, setting it up. Going over the lead code PR. So I don't know how many of you know Nimit. He's one of the biggest contributors. He yesterday night created a pull request for adding a lead code like submission to daily code. It's a pretty big pull request and, written very, I haven't read the code, so I don't know if it's written very well, but my point is he's one of few people who understands priorities. Okay, this needs to be done. This is the leanest way to do it. Let me do it. So I want to go through that pull request today. If you want to understand how, I would say anyone, in a startup would build something like lead code, then this is a good PR to look at. We'll be looking through that and we'll keep it short, 30 minutes. But, after 30 minutes, feel free to drop off. We'll still keep coding, going through pull requests, coding a little bit more. That's a high level. It's an extra class. So, for the first 30 minutes, stay, feel free to drop off after that. With that, I think that's enough context. If you just joined, feel free to read over here. I'm going to proceed. Let's get right into today's class. What's coming this week? So from Monday to Friday, hopefully around Wednesdays, there are 3, top of the stack videos for me. It's certificate management. This we skipped when we were deploying both front ends and back ends. So I'll quickly take you through if you've deployed a backend, how can you attach a certificate to it? OpenAPI spec, this has been pending for a while. It's also present in cohort 1, but I'll still re-record. And auto-generated clients, given you have an OpenAPI spec. And the merchant app in the Paytm project. The Paytm project sort of already is very big. It's 4 classes, 8 hours. So we skipped the merchant app, but a few people wanted something extra to learn here. So the merchant app will be the third thing that will be coming up this week. If all of these sound very foreign, then you have not gone through, the cohort very well. So I would urge you to do that and not skip classes, because if you try to do this directly, you won't be able to, because there are 4 classes of 8 hours before you reach here. Cool. Syllabus. Let's understand 1 to 100. I think I've gone through the 0 to 1 syllabus many times now. So I'm not going to again, but it's, basic web development, some extra advanced DevOps and backend on top. 1 to 100 from the beginning has been very actionable and very, if you're giving an SE interview, a senior engineer interview, a lot of these questions will be asked to you. Most of the times you will not be asked to implement any of this because, it takes time to implement, let's say, advanced backend communication. But we will be implementing it like throughout the code. Whatever we understand, we'll be writing code for it. But usually these are just asked in an interview. And when you join a company, when there is a big project over there, then you decide, Ketcha, we're going to use, let's say, load balancers because the scale will be very high, or message queues because 2 backends need to talk to each other. So this isn't you don't practice this a lot, which is why I will keep repeating this. 0 to 1 is very good, comprehensive things that you should learn and practice a lot. These things you don't write on a day-to-day basis anyways, but they're asked in interviews. CI/CD is another good example of this. Okay, you're not changing your CI/CD pipeline very often. You have a DevOps team, maybe a DevOps engineer who's taking care of this and a bunch of other things here, but these don't change very often. For the same reason, these are not things that even if you don't understand them, you should understand them well from the top. Even if you don't code them well, it's fine, you'll get by Googling a bit. But creating a website, writing the backend for it, these things you code on a day-to-day basis very often. So, 0 to 1 is where you should practice a lot. 1 to 100 is going to be slightly more chill. And, if you understand it well from the high level and then code it, I think should be fairly straightforward. These are the topics, not going to go through them again and again, but, a bunch of DevOps, I think this part will be super interesting when we reach Kubernetes and monitoring, maybe even container orchestration. AWS, if you've always wondered, every cloud has its own way to do object stores, CDNs, load balancers, or, Kubernetes clusters. We'll be going through AWS, but, all of this knowledge should not be exactly replicable, but like fairly easily replicable to Google Cloud or something else. What else is interesting here? Yeah, horizontal and vertical scaling. We've discussed this a little bit. We've not implemented it yet in 0 to 1. So we'll be doing a bit of this. What else? A bunch of system design things that are usually only asked in interviews. Unless you're working at a Microsoft, I don't think you ever worry about, should we choose availability or should we choose, partition tolerance? But again, something you should know. RTC we've done WebSockets. We'll do WebRTC. If we get the time, we'll do real WebRTC. But basics of WebRTC we will cover. We've covered this few times now, once on YouTube, once on cohort 1. So, but it's hard. It's not very, the first time you're doing it's not very easy. It's not very needed right now anyways, WebRTC market is a little So we'll see if we'll do this. Captcha and DDoS protection is interesting. That's pretty much it. That's the syllabus. Feel free to screenshot. We've done a little bit of it. We've done advanced backend communication a bit and, message queues. But yeah, still a lot to cover. So that's a brief. Projects, Zerodha, we may not be doing. We might be doing it as well. But this, it's not Zerodha. We were building something else, like a core exchange. We can actually do it. I don't know. Zapier will definitely be building. I might be replacing Zerodha with something else. I might not either. The reason is, Zerodha or an exchange might be covered in the Web3 cohort. So it'll just be repeated things in both the places. Still happy to do it. But, I think you can learn a little bit more if we do something else here. We will see. 0 to 1, we did, I think, Todo, we did Paytm, we did Medium. Here also, we'll keep it candid and, do a bunch of polls and decide. All right, real world open source contributions in 0 to 1, we did a bunch of GSOC project contributions set up. Here we'll do real projects, as in, some companies, the only goal would be to not spam them and, keep it very, we have repos that you can spam that we own. But if we are doing another project, don't spam them. But yeah, that'll be what we'll be covering this third part. These will probably be, recorded videos very similar to GSOC. Cool. That's the syllabus. A bunch of points that I wrote down, very randomly before the class. So let's go through them one by one very quickly. 0 to 1 is great resource for learning most things in full stack. 1 to 100 is extra, but jumping directly to the extra part is not recommended. The reason is you will understand 1 to 100 if you have not gone through 0 to 1, because as I said, it's a lot of high level stuff. Understanding React hooks and creating a custom hook is, used much more than, or, much harder to understand than, this is how you create 2 servers. Of course, it's very easy to understand. No, there is 1 machine and there is 2 machines. Now load is balanced between them. So 1 to 100 will give you the perception, SE stuff, how to scale backend systems. But when you open a front-end project and when you will be given a task to, change something in the UI, you'll get confused understanding the React hook. So the primitive things that we have done in 0 to 1 are the things that are harder, that people ignore, and directly feel like jumping to 1 to 100 because it's easier. 1 to 100 you'll see it's, creating boxes is much easier than writing code. That would urge you to focus on writing code, and if you've skipped a lot of classes here, go back to them. We'll keep implementing projects in 1 to 100 and writing code. As I said, creating dabbas are like, it's fairly easy for me also, for you also. It's one of the easiest classes. The most retention is in the classes where you're just discussing system design. But after we discuss system design, we'll also try to write some code and replicate all that we've learned. DevOps part, that includes Kubernetes monitoring. This is interesting because it's going to be fairly, a new way to deploy backends, and both deploying via containers and monitoring is something that most companies don't even worry about. And you don't have to, like, for good reasons, you don't worry about them because these are things you need at a very big scale. So this will just be something new, and again feels a little magical. You're able to monitor the number of requests that are going down, which probably means if your system is ever down, you get alerted or get a call whenever your system is down. Things like these. So that'll be a little, I feel, pretty interesting. No pressure to attend live. 1 to 100 is 0 to 1. Definitely there is pressure to attend live because you can ask doubts, things like these. 1 to 100 is fairly chill, and I don't think there will be a lot of doubts, because most of the class will be fairly ad hoc, creating boxes, as I said. You don't need 1 to 100 to start applying to companies. This is another thing. You don't feel the pressure. I will first complete the code, then I will start applying. If you have gone through 0 to 1 well, if you have started to build projects, if you can set up open source code bases, understand other people's projects, it's good enough. 1 to 100 is cherry on top. If you're applying for an SE role, then most probably they'll ask you some of, this capacity estimation, difference between polling and WebSockets, load balancers, how does your backend communicate? They'll ask you these things. They'll not ask you to implement them. But 0 to 1 stuff is, the thing that's actually enough to, provide a value to a company, write code and, create front ends and backends. So again, I would urge, focus there. Don't try to chase little bit of everything. Chase a lot of depth of 0 to 1. Depth in 0 to 1 is much better than, breadth in both the cohorts. Few good projects to look at. If you feel like, yeah, I have gone through the videos, I feel like I understand things. I don't know if I've coded myself or if I've copied. I don't understand if I'm stuck in tutorial help. So what you can do is go through a few repositories. I'm posting only our repositories, the projects that we have created, so that if there is a spam, it's contained. But there are a lot of open source libraries that I've talked about. I'm not going to now because they'll get spammed. But these are also fairly decent projects, or there's a lot of activity in these projects. There's a lot of issues that are being made that are needed to be fixed. So even if someone else fixes the issue, try it yourself and build it yourself. How doesn't really matter if yours did not get merged. What matters is, can you build it? Were you able to build it at the same level? For example, the PR that Nimit made yesterday for Lead Code that I was just going through a while back. Can you do it yourself? Can you build? Can you build add Lead Code to a project that already exists? By add Lead Code, I mean add submissions, problems, test cases, things like these. So yeah. There are standard challenges when you set up any repository, be it this or a different one. If it's not your own repository, if you did not create it from scratch, you will have some sort of a learning curve. And the best sort of skill other than learning 0 to 1 or general full stack is understanding other people's code. So practice that here. There's Daily Code. Daily Code is the website that we use to post our projects. So if you go to projects.100xsteps.com, all these slides that you see, the code for all of this, the code for, this was added yesterday, for example, categories. Now in DSA, we're adding the thing that Nimit is working on is, if you open a specific track, which is in, there you go. He can, post a problem statement on the left, have some Lead Code like submission thing on the right. So, things like these. There are 10 such things that can be added. So yeah, there will be a lot of activity here. I think there are like 40 pull requests open. I'm trying my best to get through them, and I will. Sort of is a priority for me to review all these. Soul dispenser is another real use case we need to work on. The problem that is happening right now is all these bounties are getting dispersed in a very unmanageable way. For example, if there is ever a merge that happened that I don't know dispensed $5 or $10, the problem that happens is that person needs to this person needs to get in touch with the moderator, send them their bank details, sometimes PAN if it's a big amount, then we need to transfer. So that becomes very unmanageable. And crypto solves this. Crypto doesn't solve a lot of things, but solves this. This can be solved without crypto as well. But the idea is, people can post their crypto addresses and they can just get the bounty directly by clicking a button, and there does not need to be a human involved. This was created by someone from the cohort. They've also submitted it to the hackathon. We'll see how that goes. Standard open source repositories, I'm not giving out names, but there are a bunch of them. Decentralized Fiber is another one. This might pivot to something else, something like a place where you can get jobs, show your proof of work, things like these. This is also being led by someone in the cohort. All of these are in the same org, so feel free to look at them. Don't spam them. Don't feel free to spam them. But even if there is an issue that's in your head and you want to try it out, for example, I was going through Daily Code right now. Someone created an issue which I don't know if it's needed, but it's fine. If they practice, worst case, I close it. Where did it go? Yeah, this one. This actually might be needed because they just converted this to a toggle rather than having this. I like this more. Having a fleet of these, but as I resize this, I realized you probably need something else. Yeah, it's like things like these, that might be issues in your head. Worst case, they get closed. Don't feel bad if they get closed. Worst case, you don't got to get a bounty. That's fine as well. Your goal is to learn, not to earn, even though you might earn a bit. But even here, like in the real world, the top 5% is making most of the money via bounties. So, if you're not in the top 5%, it's still fine. Focus on learning. Practice matters much more at this point compared to learning new things. As I said, you can attend 100 different classes, but whatever you have attended, make sure you're spending a lot of time there, versus attending. You can still attend extra classes. As I said, these are going to be very chill classes. At least during the first 1 hour, you're going to be dabba, okay, connecting systems, things like these. After the first hour, it will be a bunch of coding, but so you can feel free to attend. But I would still say, now is the time for you to, take things in your own hands and start to code. Cool. That's all I had for today. Let me leave it here. I will take one round of questions. We close a little bit early, 7:20. Then I will do a setup of daily code. We'll be going through how to set this project up. I'm going to repeat this. This is something you shouldn't be handheld with. There are all the steps here. You should try them yourself. But I will still set this up locally like I would usually. Then maybe we can try to solve an issue, or we can just review pull requests. I'm open to ideas over here. But that's going to be the rest of the class. That's all I had for today. A few people on YouTube as well. But let me open chat and answer one round of questions in case there are any, and then we'll go from there. And if there are no questions, even better, we can just proceed and start to set up daily code. Zapier is down. Soul Dispenser is Web3 project. Sort of. It's both Web3 and Web2. Soul Dispenser, I don't know if I have the video. There's a Web2 part. There's a website where you can track how much you've been paid. There's a website where you want to probably eventually add, your PAN card, things like these, if your amount go above a certain point, so on and so forth. Will you review? I will review PRs today. Let's see how many we can go through. But yeah, cool. All right. Let me not open chat after this. Seems like this is related to. I've been learning Rust. There are a few companies hiring for Rust. I don't want to say the name. Maybe I'll go there. But Ping Rookie, I'll tell you. Can you check this out? Okay. Slightly unrelated questions. Let's get to setting up the project, guys. The project is called Daily Code. What is Daily Code? It's just this project. It was called Daily Code for some random reason. Now it's just projects.100xfs.com. It's very active, by which I mean, DSA is being added by someone, and the rest of the slides are mostly being added by me or someone else. So there's a lot of activity here. There's a lot of people using it. So let's understand, how do you set up this project and explore it a bit. If you were, it's the first time you were looking at this. Step one, in case you want to follow along, let me just post a link to it everywhere. So in case you want to follow along, feel free to let me post it in YouTube as well. Is to clone the repository. This is a standard Next.js project. It does use a mono repo as well. So this is actually a mono repo plus turbo repo plus Next plus Prisma plus Tailwind plus Shads. I think it has Shads again. Could be wrong. Plus there's one more thing. Skipped my head. Postgres. This is the stack for the project. If you open a bunch of other open source repositories, fairly common stack. What might change? Nothing changes. Nothing changes. This is the stack. In a bunch of places. Yeah, nothing changes. It's like a very commonly used stack, basically. If you look at the folder structure, if you have gone through turbo repos generally, this might be simple to understand. If you have not gone through turbo repos, this might be hard to understand. But let me take you through the packages and apps. There are not a lot, like 6 packages. I don't think we're using this. This contains all your Prisma logic. This contains all, I don't know, maybe some backend config. Yeah, which we're not even using anymore. Firebase, we can remove this. Quickly create an issue. What all packages do we have? Store, which contains a bunch of recoil logic. I'm unsure how much recoil is being used. All the TypeScript configs, and the core UI of the project. What does the UI mean? All these components, this card component, or I think the app bars as well exist here. Could be wrong. But yeah, this contains all the React components. Harkira, if this has all of this, where are the final end user apps? If you have gone through monorepos, you'll understand this will be like very, very simple. If not, this will be very difficult. So like, feel free to pick and choose based on that. But the main core Next.js repository exists over here. It's in apps/web. It contains, most of your logic to start the Next.js application locally. if you look at the folder structure, app slash, page.tsx, if you've gone through Next.js, you probably understand this, like this. If you've not gone through Next.js, then this is very overwhelming, but this is the difference, if you comprehensively have gone through all of these, maybe not ShadCN because we've not covered it, but everything else, if you've comprehensively gone through all of these, then at least the folder structure shouldn't be jarring. What is this dot 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 PDF ID, dot 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 track ID? Again, if you've gone through all of these, then it shouldn't be jarring. If you have not, then it will be jarring. And there's no third path here. There are two paths. If you have gone through them well, then you understand. If not, then don't. Then you don't. And what should you do if you don't? Just go through the classes and first build smaller projects. Build the smaller medium application. Then build a monorepo Paytm. Then try to look at this, which has everything. Given that, let's clone the repository locally. Because a lot of times you don't have to understand anything initially. You just have to follow the steps here and get the project up and running locally. That should be your first goal. Okay, I'm able to set up the project. What should you not do? Okay, oh, this is the project. These are the issues. Someone just added an issue, remove Firebase from the project. So I will do this. I will go to packages. I will go to commons. I will go to source. I will go to Firebase. And I need to delete this. So I will simply delete it from, here. So there's a way to delete it from GitHub UI. Delete file. I will just delete it from here and create a pull request. You should not do this. You should first focus on setting it up locally. Why, Kirat, why should I not do this? This solves the issue. It solves the issue, but you don't learn anything. You provide someone value which they could have just gotten by clicking a few buttons. So this is something you should not do. Clone the project locally, search for Firebase throughout the project, make sure you've made the change everywhere. Don't rush to solve it is all I'm saying. Cool. Clone the project, as simple as doing a git clone with the URL to the repository. What is the URL to the repository? It is this. So git clone. Once you've cloned the project, what is the next step? It depends on what kind of repository it is. It could be a Golang project, could be a Rust project, it could be something else. Usually, you don't care. Most probably, the project that you're setting up, which in our case was daily-code, has some detailed steps to start it locally, or even better, it has a Docker file. Okay, what is a Docker file? Again, you have skipped classes. We have understood Docker 3 times, and one of the times we understood how to start projects locally using Docker Compose. So most good projects will have a Docker Compose file, and all you have to do is Docker Compose up to start the project locally. This is not a good project, which is why it does not have it. Pretty sure it does not have a Docker file right now. Another good issue to add, probably there is an issue. Maybe there's a PR as well for this. There's probably a PR for this. I'm pretty sure there is. Yeah, someone has added it. I just haven't merged it. Which is why we'll go through the raw steps to start it. Harkirat, what do you mean raw steps to start it? I mean, we are not going to use Docker. Whenever you are starting a project locally, the first step is cloning the project. The second step is starting it locally. How can you start it? You can either start it using Docker if the project supports this. This project does not. What is the second way you can start it? You can start by running it raw. What does running it raw mean? It means you will first install Node.js on your machine. Then you will run npm install to install all the dependencies. Then you will build the project, so on and so forth. You will start the database locally yourself. So this second thing is what we are doing. Ideally, we should just use Docker. There is a pull request for it. I haven't merged it. As soon as I merged it, it should be as simple as doing a Docker compose up to start the project locally. Let's follow all the steps. Thankfully, they've been given in a README. Most of the times, if you're setting up a project, they will be given in a README. So let's open the README quickly and follow the steps. Yarn install at the root folder. Harkirat, I don't have Yarn. Google, how can you install Yarn? If you have npm, if you have Node, it's very easy to add Yarn as a package manager to your machine. And if you want handholding here, even though you shouldn't, it's npm i-yarn should probably install Yarn on your machine. I've done the first step. I have done this step right here, cd daily code, yarn install. What is the next step? It says cd packages slash db. Go to the packages slash db folder. This is wrong, shouldn't be slash packages, but so feel free to pick that up as well. And copy .env.example to env. Harkirat, .env.example to .env. I am already, jarred to the max. I don't understand. What are you doing here? What is .env.example? Why would someone name a file .env.example? Why not .env.txt? Why not .env.js? This also we have covered in a class. I can give a brief of why you do this, but we have covered this in a class. Okay, wherever you are putting secrets, which usually is the .env file. For example, if I open this, either one of these, I've copied it over. It has a database URL. You don't want to by mistake you put a production database URL here and commit it to GitHub so that the world can look at your production GitHub database URL. For that reason, you create a .env.example that you actually commit, and the .env remains in git ignore. And even if you by mistake or intentionally put a dev db URL here, prod db URL here, it does not get ever committed to GitHub. So that's what this step is. Then you replace this with a real Postgres URL. Let me just open this in Visual Studio Code, so it's slightly easier to navigate. Feel free to open it in Visual Studio Code as well. So what have I done to quickly recap from the beginning of the class? I have cloned the repository, and to start it locally, I have installed Node.js on my machine. I already had it. I ran npm install, and now I'm following the rest of the steps given in the repository. What are the steps? The first step was copy .env to .example to .env in this folder, in packages/db folder, not the root folder, in the packages/db folder. So packages/db has a .env file, .env.example file. Copy it to .env and replace the database URL. Before you replace the database URL, what should you do? You should get a database, right? So make sure you're able to get a database either from our trusted neon.tech, or you can just start it locally using Postgres. I'm pretty sure I don't have Docker running. So let me start Docker, then let me run a Postgres database locally. Because if you're trying to set up any project, or specifically this project today, you will need a place where you store all the database. If you remember the tech stack had Postgres over here. So if it has Postgres, it means you need a database to be able to store all the data, even if you're running it locally. So you need to get a Postgres database. I am just going to use Docker to start it, but feel free to get one from neon.tech. Docker run. I deleted my history. I'll have to Google it. Docker run Postgres. I usually just reverse search. Harkiyat, what does reverse search mean? Press Command R and search for, for example, Redis or Docker, and it shows me all the Docker commands that I ran recently, but I recently deleted my bash history, which is why I have to go here and start it, like find the command. Should be fairly straightforward. That looks right. This is the command that I'm running to start Postgres locally. Harkirat, you started it immediately, happened too quickly. Yeah, it's actually fairly easy to start Postgres. Harkirat, isn't the right way to start Postgres this Postgres install macOS and then go here and then follow all the steps here and install it locally? Yes, you can do that as well. But in our class called Actionable Docker, which is, this class right here, we discussed how can you start it locally without, getting Postgres locally. Just use Docker to start it. And this is the command that you should run there. Docker run, give it a name. You don't have to give it a name. Feel free to skip this. Give it an environment variable called Postgres password, which is, the password for this specific database. Start it in detached mode. And what are we starting? We are starting Postgres. This is a single command that I'm running to start Postgres locally. so that I can use it where? In my .env file that I had just created. This file right here. Quickly to recap one more time, because I think too many things happen too quickly. I am here on step C. I have cloned the repository locally. Step 1 is done. While starting it locally, I have installed Node.js. I've run npm install. I'm now on the next step, which what does the GitHub repository say? It says copy over .env.example to .env. I've done that. What is the next thing it says? Update the .env with the database URL. I have started the database locally. I need to replace the URL. The question is, what should this URL be given the way I started Postgres was by running a Docker command. If this feels very complicated, just go to neon.tech, log in over here, create a new project over here, call it test 123 or whatever, and copy this Postgres URL to your .env file. Get a Postgres database for free from someone else. Don't start it locally. That works as well. Let me just do that for ease of understanding. Never share this with anyone. I know I'm sharing it on YouTube, but I will be deleting this database very soon. But never share this, with anyone. Ideally, just start it locally. Harkiyat, what should this string be if I start it locally by running the docker run command that you just showed? What was the command? This was the command. And what will the database URL be? It will be this. Username will be Postgres. Password will be whatever you passed here. Host would be localhost, and DB would be Postgres. So you can use either this or this based on where are you getting your database. Ideally, just get it locally because it will be much faster as you run the project. If you get this, then it will be much harder for you to run the project somewhere else. Cool. We're going to take a small mini break here for like 30 seconds and then proceed. We'll look at Q&A until then. Do port mapping. Did I not? Oh, he's right. Yeah, if you're running it locally, you need one more thing here. You need a port mapping. -p 5432:5432. So if you're running it locally, make sure you have the port mapping as well, else it will not work. But Kirat, I ran it without the port mapping. Yes. So what you should do is docker ps followed by docker kill followed by run it again with the port mapping. If you don't have the port mapping, it will not work. Thank you to whoever posted that. It might also give you a conflict. So just feel free to remove the name argument. So this is your final command to run. And if you run this command, and if Docker is running, Postgres is running locally for you, you will find it here, else you'll find it on whatever your cloud URL is. Let me just use cloud URL for ease of understanding for this one. Cool, Harkirat. We have done this. We have done this. The next step is this. What is this, Harkirat? I don't understand this at all. You have not gone through the Prisma class then. We need to migrate the database. We need to tell this freshly created database, okay, yeah, these are the tables that you need to have. This is some dummy data that you need to have so that whenever you start the project locally, you're able to see some, data in there. If you don't seed your database, if you don't run the second command, you will not see any track over here. It will be an empty project for you. If you don't migrate your database or, don't give it the right tables, then you're pretty much screwed, right? Your SQL table does not have the right tables. So again, covered in depth in Prisma. Feel free to read about Prisma and understand what both of these commands do. Let me quickly run them. Where do I need to run them? Packages/db. This, as you will see now, will take some time because it's migrating everything somewhere else. Versus if I was doing it locally, it would have happened fairly quickly. I think I can open Q&A now because this will take a decent chunk of time. Does installing Yarn machine problematic generally, or is it just my machine? It can be problem. I mean, it's machine specific. Sometimes even installing Node.js is problematic. So it's not machine specific generally. Yeah, you'll find a way around it. Can we dive into the Cal course? It has grown humongously. Yeah, let's start small though. Yeah. Why caching is not there in daily code? it does not need caching. It has static site generation. We have covered this in a video, but everything that you see here on projects.analyticsapps.com is actually statically generated, including this page and each one of these tracks and every one of these pages. So nothing is hitting the database. I think these titles get so yesterday the database went down. Small story. The database went down yesterday. I changed the password, but the website was still up. Why? Because the website is generated statically. Only when the website is building does the database get hit. Other than it's just a bunch of HTML files somewhere that you can just go through. Harkirat, why is it created statically? We've covered this in the SSG video or SSG video, but hello, mic testing. Sorry about that. My Zoom crashed, but my OBS crashed as well. No, it's all good. Are we good? Are we good to go? Are we good to go? Are we good to go? Working now. All right. Cool. So what happened right now? My tables were created. My first command succeeded. Here, what was the first command? It was this command right here. How do you know this succeeded, Harkirat? I can just go to neon.tech. I can open my database. I can click on SQL editor. What did I do? Went to neon.tech, went to my database and clicked on SQL editor on the left. Now I can run a bunch of SQL queries here just to see if things are working or not. So let me run a select star from tracks over here. Run it. Tracks does not exist. Track. Select star from track. Select start from problem. It says query completed with no results. It means I have a database. The database has a problems table. It has a track table. It has no data in there yet. I need to seed the data next. That is what this command says, npx prisma db seed. Here, what does this command do? This command goes into db slash prisma slash seed.ts and puts all the dummy data in the database. Here, dummy data, yes. If you look at this file called seedsdata.js or json.ts, it has a bunch of database dump. It has a dump of our database at some point, so that whenever someone is starting the project locally, they can put all of this data in their database so that they're good to go, and they can see the same thing that you see on projects.100xsteps.com. This is what's called seeding of data. Okay, all this data that you see in the production database, you're able to get in your local database. So what is happening in the next step? If this was our prod DB, at some point we took all the data from the prod DB and brought it over to our project. Let's say, GitHub project. We copied all the data from our production database, brought it over to the GitHub project. Where, Harkirat, where did you bring it? We brought it on seeddata.ts file that exists in packages/db. All this data that you see here is a dump of the production database. What does seed.ts do? It gets all that data and pushes it to the database. Does a db.track.create. Here, db, where does db come from? What is db.track? Again, this has been covered in Prisma. If you know Prisma, it should be fairly straightforward. Let's try to run the seed command one more time because it did fail the first time. Oh, I think I know why it might have failed. Actually, I don't know. But let's just run generate once. npx prisma generate to regenerate the client. I don't think this was the problem. But let's try to seed the database one more time. Let's see if it works now. Let me look at Q&A until then. Do we need to add Prisma package to npm yarn in packages.db? It should already be there, unless it does have Prisma, right? So package DB Prisma db slash package.json does have Prisma as a dependency. Use yarn. I don't think that's the problem. Hydration failed. Someone just pushes in a PR for this. You can ignore the error if it works for you locally, but there is a PR currently that fixes. Oh, it seems like it worked. I don't know why it failed the first time, but the only thing I changed was I regenerated the client and then I ran npx prisma db seed. What does this do? This seeds our database. Harkirat, what does seeding the database mean? If I now open neon.tech and do a select star from problem, you will see it has a bunch of problems over here. What is a problem, Hakirat? It is just a name that we kept for, each of the page that you see here. So this page is one problem. It has a title, it has some body. And this page is one problem, title, body, so on and so forth. So it has a bunch of problem. It also has a bunch of tracks. So if I do a select star from track, it shows me the CI/CD track. I was able to migrate my database. That is all that you need. Iske baad, the last thing that's left is actually starting the project locally, which is going to be yarn dev. So I'm going to do a cd dot dot cd dot dot cd apps slash packages, sorry, apps slash web, and then do a yarn run dev to start the project locally. If I go to localhost colon 3000 now, I should see the project locally running on my machine with all the data seeded with on my personal database. So, I can deploy it independently myself. That's open source, right? You can take someone else's code and deploy it. That's exactly what we're doing here. We took someone else's code. We're starting it locally. We've taken all that data also in this case. But yeah, generally you don't want to take other people's data. You want, if you want to fork an open source project, you can, and, deploy it independently, just like we did. But yeah, that's a brief. The project is running for you locally. If you open CI/CD or any track over here, you should see, the details of the track. You can filter them, so on and so forth. My machine is lagging a bit. But yeah, that's how you start the project. Fairly straightforward. All I did was, follow all the steps given in the README. And something happened here. My machine is lagging a little bit, not too much. Oh, this is the CI/CD track. There you go. Then you go. You can, yeah, pretty much play with it as much as you want. But that's the brief of how you can start the project locally. Now the question is, how can I fix issues, Harkirat? Okay, let's pick a simple issue and try to fix it. But before that, let me do a quick poll. Even if you weren't able to set up the project, were you able to understand how to set up the project by following the steps in the README? Give me a yes or a no. Pretty decent. Cool. It is probably the only time, that we will be hand holding an open source project setup. I mean, we will be for other projects, but like generally, this is, the thing you should do yourself. If you can't do even this much, right? If you can't even set up the project, then there is a problem, and this is something you should always do yourself. Fixing an issue, you can still take some help, but yeah, setting up is, on you. Great. So we understand how to set the project up locally. From here is solving a bunch of issues. For example, let's see if there is a, for example, this is a very common, thing in React. Whenever you're iterating over things, you should pass them a key. So someone said there is a warning that comes. How can you fix this? Someone has already fixed it. But yeah, how would I fix it? What did they say? Key missing in tracks.categories.map. There is an error over here. It says, warning, each child in a list should have a unique key prop. How would I solve this? I would first Google this error. If you've done React many times, then you've seen this error many times. If you've not done React many times, you will Google this error. It will tell you, कि हाँ यार, whenever you're iterating, whenever you're in React iterating over an array and rendering some things, you should give it a unique key. So, something like this, item dot, whatever is unique about every item, which in this case, what is the type of an item? It has a category, then it has an ID. So item dot category dot ID. Yeah, this should solve the issue. I'm assuming this is how that person solved the issue as well. Harkirat, was this creating any problems? No, this wasn't really creating any problems. It will lead to a performance hit in React, which is why React is, complaining so much about it in the logs. But even if you ignore it, it's fine. But it's a good thing to fix. Someone fixed it as well. Seemed like the same person who had reported it. Let's see what their fix was. Was it similar to what I did? Was it something else? This fixes two issues, not one. So let's see what both of them are. Updated the README a bit. Prisma migrate dev. If previous commands fail, try these. Otherwise, skip. Why did you add this? I'll have to read through an issue. But yeah, as you can see, what did they do here? The other issue that they fixed was just gave a key to that specific div that's being iterated upon. So this is right. This I don't know why they added. So let me quickly check. It seemed like it solved two issues, 196 and 210. So let's look at what 210 is. 196 is NPX Prisma is failing, need help. Update my fork, cloned my repo, did uninstall, did this thing, copied over, replace this thing, npx prisma, and here is where it failed. What do you see? Prisma generate. Can't find module, Prisma build index.js. I'm using Windows machine. I ran this solution, then run yarn add Prisma. Someone else also said this. Packages db Prisma. Packages db Prisma. यहाँ पे add Prisma. Yes, not the feed. These helped creating a PR for these. Okay, that's why they did it. Seems like on Windows you have to do an extra step. But the question is, did they really add it in the README? I don't see that specific step. Is this right? Or do we need to add more things on here? But yeah, that's a brief of how you solve issues. Cool. So from here, I will just take a poll. We can do a few things. We can review pull requests because as you can see, there are 32, which is a lot. Or we can just do a Q&A. I guess this is, yeah, decent enough options. Let's do either a Q&A or I can, solve a bunch of issues myself as well. So let's see. What should we do? Harkirat solves issues. Harkirat reviews PRs or simple Q&A. Alrighty. Launch. So let me look at YouTube as well. Rainy weather, sometime people are just chatting, I guess. All right, let's see. Oh wow, pretty skew. Oh god. So it's very skew. Not skewed. It's very mediocre-ish. 40%. Akira solve issues. 35%. Akira reviews PRs. So yeah, let's just ignore the last one. Let's do a combination of me reviewing pull requests and me solving them. Let's start with me solving them. So let's see if there is. I wanted to go through the lead code issue. But okay, let's go to it towards the end. What can I solve? My internet connection is unstable, is what Zoom is telling me, and I can feel it because issues won't open for me. There we go. Someone can pick this up. This is just remove it from apps as well. Remove all usages of Firebase from package.json. We don't need it anymore. Improve key binding. Let's see what that is. Improve. I work on this. Already solved it. I have an issue. The thing is, most issues here are already picked up. Okay, two people added this as well. Let's review this really quickly. Because so the project was initially on Firebase. In fact, this project was actually built in a YouTube live. Like the initial part of this project was actually built a few weeks ago in a YouTube live. Yeah, just go through. I don't have to, so you can go through that and find out the real foundation for this project was actually built live. And then adding monorepo on top, eventually migrating away from Firebase was done here. If you want to know how the project was set up, there's a live out there. So yeah, there you go. This is I tried. I read the issue. I quickly sprinted. No, no, not to, this is also a great issue, but this is the better solve. Remove all of this. Remove from the git ignore as well. Removed backend slash firebase.json. Removed the backend folder completely, basically, because you don't need this backend folder anymore. Yeah, you can just remove this completely, by the way. Package.json, remove Firebase as a dependency. Common, remove Firebase everywhere. So this is a better way to solve the issue. I just posted remove Firebase. But there are 10 different usages of it. This one's better way to do it. It's just this is one comment here, and then it's good to go, which is remove the backend folder completely. Yeah, that's pretty much it. What else can we solve or review? Let's try to solve an issue, and then I'm sure someone has already solved it, so we can look at how they fixed it. Basic description: adding functionality for users to navigate back to the homepage by clicking on a logo or header. This is a standard feature to improve usability. Problem: there is no way of going back to the homepage showing all the slides. I think there is a way where you can unselect it, if I'm not wrong, but selected, unselected, selected, unselected. I can navigate back. You have to click on, yeah, exactly. Okay, so this can be closed. Toaster not working in delivery. I've noticed Toaster is not properly configured. Yeah, I found this mistake. I wanted to work on it. Okay, let's see. Toast, for those of you who don't know, is this thing that you see at the bottom right from time to time. But it seems like there is an issue while setting it up. What is happening here? This PR is something wrong here. I think it's just not up to date. Is this PR? My internet is dying. Is this PR up to date? Bunch of changes unrelated. Cool. Let's just try to bring this down to 0 today. Either close or request a review at the very least. Correct path for the file. This looks good. I think it's something I just asked. Yep. No bounty for this. So this is like a fairly straightforward issue. The problem with bounties is I feel bad now not giving bounties, but at the same time, I don't want to give $1 bounties. I think there's like more overhead and there's no benefit of, giving out a $5 or $1 bounty. I think the minimum I want to give is 10, which is why, small issues will probably just, get ignored. Pre-read by div, I think that is right. I think that was the error that you were getting. Yeah, exactly. Okay. I am not testing this, but seems even if it isn't right, doesn't cause any visual changes. Fix the README file. These are all simple changes. Let's get to the LeetCode one very soon. I think this one's already done. So yeah. Remove Firebase. Going to close this one. This was a simple one, I think. Yeah, this was a simple one. Category bar fixed responsiveness, added drop down to it. I like this one. I mean, yeah, we should just merge this. Yeah, as you can see, the projects, this gets really bad. So they just converted it into a drop down. Yeah, we can like work on it later on. There are a lot of changes though. What's up here? Package lock. So we've like we're forcing, yarn to be used in this project. So please get rid of package lock.json. This is the problem with remote work. There's so much back and forth. Now I told him this. Now he will fix this, in a few hours. Then I will come back to it in 4 hours. So keeps on happening. Fixed toaster configuration. I think I already saw this, but commented on it. Is there a way to mark them as done or something? Let's get to the LeetCode issue, guys. This is a big one. Nimit did this yesterday. A lot of people were trying this. There are a few approaches to build LeetCode. We are picking the leanest one. And I think V1 is done. So this is where we showed like 2 weeks ago when we started to add data structures and algorithms to the cohort. Soham is taking the classes, but in every class we want to let people submit the problem right there. Eventually add some bounties, competitions, things like these. Decent issue to pick. There's already a code type that exists that shows code on the right and problem statement on the left. So when we were initially creating daily code, it was actually being created as lead code, which is why there is already a UI that shows a problem statement on the left and a code snippet on the right, as a good starting point. And what we need to do is add an admin dashboard where admins can add problems, titles, and test cases. And on the user side, users can see the problem statement on the left, which is if they go to this specific class and there's a problem over there, for example, this good pairs problem, the explanation is on the left and there is a area on the right for them to be able to edit it. A few people tried this. This is the first implementation. The problem here was it did not follow the fact that this was already done a bit. I mentioned this a few times. I mentioned over here, okay, call out, we already have the code type. I think this was like a fresh UI that was built, so that's it's it's a mild yellow flag. You need them to integrate in your code base. In the, I'm not saying this is what happened here, but in the go to code as quickly as possible, or merge it as quickly as possible. You shouldn't independently create the project. If this was the case, maybe that was not the case. Oh, maybe that was not the case. I don't know. But either way, yeah. That's why I skipped this. And then piston. Okay, this is piston. Don't know it's a good or not. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this is the other thing I was talking about. There are a bunch of open source, not open source, like a bunch of APIs that let you do code submissions. Judge Zero is one. This person recommended a different one called Piston. I think this is the right way to build this initially. Eventually, you can bring it in house and have your own code execution engine, but not as a V1. So finally, Nimit said he's working with integrating it with Judge Zero. I think he chose Judge Zero because that was the one I've recommended in the past in another issue. I think both of them are working right now on it. Yeah, as I said, feel free to, yeah, like multiple implementations don't matter in the end. You can collaborate, figure it out. Rakshit posted a schema. This felt wrong to me. I took a very quick look because not every problem will have test cases. Problem needs to have a type. This actually might be right. Every problem can have test cases. This is actually fine. If the type of the problem is code, then you can have a bunch of test cases. For those of you who don't understand what test cases are, how many of you already know how lead code problems are created? Do you already know how lead code problems are created? How are they evaluated? Do you understand test cases? Do you understand how an algorithmic problem competition platform is created already? Yes or no? It's a 50-50. So yeah, this is like one, extra knowledge that you need to have before you build something like this. Whenever you're building something like lead code, where this is your lead code UI, this is your the jargon that we're learning right now is test cases and what they are. Whenever you're building something like lead code, if this is your UI that has the problem statement on the left, and your code execution editor on the right, and a button over here that says submit. Have you ever wondered what happens when you click on submit? You've given it a bunch of code, but how is it being evaluated? Is it someone who's reading the code? Yeah, there is a person sitting here who's reading all of your code and figuring out that this algorithm looks right. Or is there a different way to evaluate the code? How do you know the int main, whatever CPP code that you've written, see out, hi, oh God, it's been a while, endl, and then return 0, whatever code you've written, how do you know if it's right or not, if it solves this problem statement or not? And the answer is test cases. Every problem statement, whoever is writing the problem statement, let's say someone wrote, given an array, find the max value in the array, return -1 if the array is empty. If someone has created this problem statement, when a user submits their code, there is no easy way to evaluate if their code is right or not. So what usually people do is they create test cases. कि यार this problem का there are three test cases. First test case is the array looks something like this, 1 2 3 4 5, and the answer for that first test case, what should be the answer for the first test case? It should be 5, because 5 is the maximum value in this specific array. And similarly, you can have, multiple test cases. Bigger test cases, you'll have, very big array. You will have edge cases. What if there is an empty array? And then the answer should be -1, so on and so forth. So whenever you're creating something like lead code, whoever is setting the problems should also, create a bunch of test cases. Then these test cases should run on a right code, on a correct code that usually the author has created. The author will create some code. That author code will give you the actual output. Author code will give you the actual output. Catch for this input. This is the output. For this input, this is the output. And you will store all of these test cases in your database. Whenever a user comes to your website and clicks on submit, you will run their code on the same test cases, and you will see is the output same. And if the output is same for all of them, is when you say your submission is accepted. If the output is different for any one of them, then you say your submission is rejected. Harkirat, so you are saying that whenever I go to lead code and I submit a problem, it is running on some test cases only, some 30, 40 test cases. Yes. So Harkirat, then I can spoof, I can have an incorrect solution, yet have an AC, an accepted solution. Yes, you can. That's why there's this concept of hacking in code forces, right? The author wrote a bunch of test cases. You might have written some code that passes these test cases. What if I write code like this? Okay, if r of 0 equal to 1 and r of 1 equal to 2, so on and so forth, then return 5. Okay, bhai, then the answer is 5. What if I hard code all the test cases over here and then just submit? Then it will still give you an AC. It will still give you an accepted because it passed for these test cases. This means like you can get away by writing wrong code, yes, which is why your test cases should be very solid. It should cover a lot of edge cases. It should have, a very big length, very small length, zero length, negative characters, so on and so forth. So every problem needs to have a test case, which is why if you look at the schema, it says here, now the problems will have three types: blog, a simple blog. What is a simple blog? Something like this, or a code type. And if it is of a code type, then it will have multiple test cases. Here, this test case may, given this input, which can be a string, for example, if it's an array, that can simply be something like, this array stringified. And then the expected output given that input, which again could be an array, could be a string, doesn't matter. So, every problem will now have a test case associated with it. Or like multiple test cases. It's like a one-to-many relationship. Every problem can have multiple test cases associated with it. Whenever the user clicks on submit, you test against each one of these test cases. So this schema actually looks right. And submission, yeah, this is another thing. A user can submit multiple times. When the user comes to the website, similar to lead code, and makes 10 submissions, let's say, they probably want to see their existing submissions. So, that is why there's a submissions schema as well, which will be associated to a problem. Okay, given this problem, this user has made this specific, submission, but submission result is KR for this submission, whether it passed or not. It should not be a Boolean. It should be an enum, which has types like AC, TLE, memory used, time used, so on and so forth. But this is a great start. This is how you would design the schema. And this looks also pretty good. So actually, feel free to rush hit. Feel free to proceed working on it, even though Nimit is working on it also. Feel free to work on it. We can find a way to merge together. Either way, create a draft PR. I told this to Nimit yesterday as well. Create a draft PR so I can at least make sure you're working on the right thing. Bunch of other people worked on it. H Singh also commented with what the schema should look like. And then eventually Nimit messaged me yesterday. He's created a PR. Code submission. Yeah. So what else? Yeah, it seems like everyone's creating this now. Like a lot of people have created this. Let's look at Nimit's pull request really quickly. And see what he's done. His solution is, at least UI wise, fairly elegant. If you look at it, it looks something like this. So as you can see, problem statement description on the left, or your submissions, very similar to lead code. You can submit code or run code very similar to lead code. And when the user runs code, it runs on various test cases that you can see. Oh, play. There you go. And you can expand, retract, simple stuff. Shatsion makes this like fairly simple. I'm assuming that's what's being used here. Why is my video pausing again and again? Yeah, you get the idea. I mean, this is what the UI looks like. Video isn't working for me. But yeah, let's look at the code for this. What code did he write? And this is the first time I'm reading the code as well. This is going to be a fairly big pull request, which is why I asked him to create a draft, because it's usually a good idea to, merge these incrementally. Otherwise, he'll be stuck with a lot of pull requests. Sorry, a lot of merge conflicts. Update the README, unsure why. Update this, unsure why. Oh, he added this. Next public Judge Zero API URL. For those of you who don't know, as I said, there are a lot of external libraries. There are a lot of you can build lead code like this. There's a video that we discussed this in. Just go to the latest video on the channel. You will find how to build lead code in-house. But you generally, at least initially, don't want to build it in-house. You want to use an external service that can handle it for you. That is what we're using today, called Judge Zero. You send Judge Zero it's actually open source. You can self-host it, or you can use their offering to, pay them a little bit for them to host. Either way, you can give it some code, and then it will return back to you. Okay, given this code, this was the output. This was the time it took. Was there a time limit exceeded, so on and so forth. So we are just using Judge O as an API for execution. We are not doing execution in-house. Why, Kirat? Generally, you should do this. If someone has built this, use it. If at scale it becomes expensive, you bring it in-house. There is no point of over-engineering, at least, for something like this. But, 2 weeks ago, we had this. It's still not done. We really need this as soon as possible because, DSA classes are happening every week. So, you should always not reinvent the wheel, which in this case we aren't. We're using Judge Zero, which is why he's added, a Judge Zero URL in .env, because this is where our backend would eventually hit to do submissions and get back responses. He has self-hosted it. As I said, Judge Zero is open source, so you can self-host it on your machine, or you can use their API, something like paid.judgezero.com, that lets you pay them a little bit for every API call, and they handle deploying it, scaling down for you. A route to get all the users' submissions. Get a submission ID. This looks wrong. No auth. This would just let anyone get a submission. Yeah, that looks wrong. Users shouldn't be able to get each other's submissions. API code submission.ts. This probably seems like the one that will, actually, yeah. No, this is for fetching submissions. Where is the endpoint? There you go. There is a post endpoint which takes source code, the language ID, because you could have a JavaScript language, C++ language, and the problem statement ID as an input. Gets the problem from the database. If the problem doesn't exist, tells the user. Gets the test cases and main function name from the database again. Test cases dot map. Source code is this. Language ID is this. Expected output is this. Creates an array, like an in-memory array. This is the user's source code plus get input string, test case dot inputs, main function name. This is going to be interesting. /n console.log function name args.join this thing. Yeah. So what he's doing is, so this seems like this only supports JavaScript right now, which is fine. Should this take language ID as input and be based on the language? Yes. So what he does right now is, calls the function and just appends that to the source code. If this is the source code that the user gave you, you add kr, call the function and get output it on std out, so you can get it back from Judge Zero. This should also change. do we need to do it? API URL. This is the API URL to do batch submissions to Judge Zero. Send the API call, get the response, get a bunch of tokens. The way that Judge Zero works is you know, it's highly asynchronous. You tell it, this is the code that I'm submitting. It doesn't immediately give you the output. It tells you, here is an ID, some random ID. Track the submission using this ID. And then you have to poll it again and again. Okay, is my submission with this ID done? Is my submission with this ID done? Every few seconds. And then whenever it is done, it will tell you, because someone else's code could take 1 second, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. You don't know. Which is why it doesn't in the initial request return you the response. Okay, this was the response. This was the time that it took. It gives you an ID. You slowly pull it. So yeah, that's just a brief about Judge Zero. And that's probably what's happening here. Okay, you're storing all the tokens that you got from the backend in this token map, and token string equal to this thing, process submission, set timeout. Then every 1 second you're asking Judge Zero, most probably, is this done? Is this done? Is this done? And then let's see what fetch submissions does. Probably just hits Judge Zero again. This is in a different file. Yeah, this is going to be really hard to review. Fetch submissions. Yeah, there you go. /submission/batch. And this time we're sending a GET request. And then, it will return back the ones that are processing, the ones that are processed. And then if processing not length, if there are still some that are being processed, then you refetch all the submissions after a delay, after 1 second. You probably add backup here. All right. Let me take a pause here. I think this is going to be very long to review, and I'm sure most of you have lost track of what's happening here. So let me take a pause and let's discuss. It's 8:14 already. How are we doing, guys? Are we doing good? Yes or no? Give me a no if you don't understand anything, or don't understand a little bit. How are we doing? Yeah, so 50-50 as expected. Yeah, feel free to I'll take a pause here. Not review this anymore. Let's see what else we can do. Let's take a small break for 2 minutes. And then we will proceed. There's not much to do anyways. This was pretty much the class as orientation was plus a bunch of, code reviews. Wish I could have done more code reviews, but I'm sure the easier code reviews are anyways easy to understand. Let's quickly look at, a few easier ones, and then we can go from there. This one, for example, changed it from buttons to a select. So if you look at all the categories, they now can be selected via a select rather than a button. This should probably only happen on mobile, I still feel. But let's look at how he changed it. But let me also comment, when the screen is larger, then you can show the user a bunch of these. And then when the screen is smaller, you can just, create a toggle. But let's look at how he did it. Yeah, fairly simple, right? Rather than iterating over all the categories and rendering a button, he created a select with all the categories and iterating over them here. So it's like, if you know React, hopefully like this is fairly easy to understand. Rather than iterating and rendering a button, we are iterating and rendering a select. The only thing I would comment here is, can we do this conditionally? If screen width is less than LG, maybe render the select. But yeah, these kind of issues are like appreciated. They might not get merged. I still might close it. But good way for you to practice. Okay, do you understand it? And I myself also might be adding a bunch of issues here. Let's see if there's more. Add bookmark feature that lets users. This will be a big one to review. Bookmark when they're logged in. This is something someone added there as well in daily in uh, in CMS. But yeah, this also is a again. I don't know if this is needed. A lot of these I don't know. My only concern with this like building something like this in open is, it gets over engineered. We add too many features because everyone wants to add a feature, but this still seems like a decentish issue to add. Let's see how they solve it. I'm assuming, let's start from the database. Let's see how they change the database and go from there. If you look at the database changes they added a new model called bookmarks. Here, for a bookmark, there will be a user ID and a track ID. This user has this track bookmarked. And if you look at, why were these added? Verification token has track, which is of type bookmark. This looks wrong. Like there's no reason for track, which is a bookmark array, to be in verification token. This looks right. I think they were trying to add it here. They by mistake added it here. But yeah, this is the real change. Okay, every user will have a bunch of bookmarks, and every bookmark is associated with the user and a track. Okay, this user is associated with this track, and then given you have this database schema, I'm assuming everything else is straightforward. They added a bookmarks/page.tsx, which fetches all the bookmarks for the user, get all bookmark tracks. Should probably be paginated. If you are adding it, probably paginated. Yeah, a bunch of things that probably don't need to be here. But yeah, I'm assuming this is like a very simple full stack feature, right? Let me just comment it. You are adding something to a backend. You are creating a UI for it. So if you want to practice full stack, issues like these are decent. Again, a lot of these might not get merged because they just might over-engineer the platform, but you get the idea. All right, responsiveness, key binding feature, urgent, add track route, create track route. Yeah, I'll take a pause here, guys. I think it's a lot to cover for one day. How are we doing? Let me open chat. Any questions, guys, relate to the class or otherwise? I think we can take a pause here and, call it after this. But any questions relate to the class or otherwise? Chat is open. Let's see. Oh, none of them are asked. Most of the issues get picked, assigned immediately. Can I go ahead and create PR and learn something new? Yes. Don't create a duplicate PR, but try to solve the issue yourself. Can't understand code, knowledge gaps are. You should spend some time. If you've gone through all the videos, this should be like it's a very simple code, right? And doesn't do much. So it should be very easy to understand. What's back off? Back off means, if something does not give you an answer, then you shouldn't ask it the answer again in 1 second. You should back off a bit. After 2 seconds, ask the response. Did not give it, then after 4 seconds, ask for a response, so on and so forth. I have joined the course yesterday. I don't know much of MERN. You should watch 0 to 1. Or, 1 to 100, you can enjoy the first part where we're drawing a bunch of numbers, but you'll be a little confused later on. We can just use Markdown as input for the problem statement. I have text, images for the problem statement. Yes, we can use Markdown. We use Notion. I am conflicted between which one of them to choose, but we use Notion right now. So that's the one we're going with. Markdown is probably a better choice to keep it, less dependent on a platform. Did you just say Web3 cohort? A while back I did. We might be doing it, yeah. We'll see. It feels like all the repos are too crowded now. Yes, which is why you moved to something else. It wasn't crowded up until 2 months ago. No one was doing it, but the people who were doing it got referred. So that's the whole point of you need to be hardworking, but you need to be a little bit smart as well. Seems like there's a very big lag on YouTube. Currently I'm okay. SPNet. How much rent per Seb Square was very small office was 24,000 rupees a month, like a 6-seater. Sold expenses. Okay, answer that. All right. One more set of questions, guys. Then we'll call it. I think the class is done for today. I will see you guys next week when 0 to 100 officially starts. This was just an ad hoc extra class. Let it flow though, let it flow. Wow, YouTube is like lagging really bad. Um, Start from the top. Hi, Hakirat. I recently joined 0 to 100. Can you guide me to suggest how to take 0 to 1 and get on pace for 1 to 100? Yeah, just sprint through the projects, I would say. If you already know coding a bit, videos are going to be a little bit slow. So, pick and choose which video you're watching. There are like categories on every video. So just skip through them and quickly build a lot of projects. I've created a library for PDF generation from Notion Record Map, and I did it on a server, but very confused. Should I add it or not? Like, will we be overdoing it? Like, it's already done. Should I go for it? Generally, a good project to open source. Given a Notion doc, converting into a PDF by using, you know, their record map is a great project to generally open. In fact, I was actually looking at when I convert a Notion doc into a website. I came across this website that build it. Sorry about that. Uh, Internet is a little dilly dally. But yeah, I was saying a bunch of speculative use cases you can build that let you mint some token based on how much work you've done. For example, you can build a decentralized lead code, even though don't build it. But what will happen now in lead code? Everyone will be, submitting a bunch of problems. When so many people submit problems, we will need to buy a bunch of machines or rent a bunch of machines on EC2. What if students could themselves, rent their machines out for submissions, and get some token for it? If you solve 100 submissions, let me quickly screen share, but I hope this is like clear to understand. But this is what sort of Deepin is. It's like decentralized infrastructure, right? So what you can do is, okay, whenever we build lead code, let's say, if this is a student in or person, Maharashtra, who has a laptop, and then there is another user in Chandigarh who has a laptop, um, and there is a platform like lead code. There is a platform like lead code where people are submitting like crazy. People are like, there's a competition going on. People are submitting problem statements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, clicking the submit button very well. You can either run their submissions on an AWS machine, or you can run the submissions on some person's laptop in Maharashtra. Doesn't matter, right? As long as it has 4 GB RAM and some specific hardware, um, you can run it on some random people's machines. Why would random people give you their compute in lieu for some token? So what you can do, you have to find a way to prove कि यार महाराष्ट्र में जो बंदा था, he actually solved the lead code problem and got back a result for a user. And if they did, you give them some 0.01 token or 1 token of your things, so on and so forth. So use cases like these are a third use case. What is another good use case in crypto that you can build right now? You can build like RPC aggregators. There are a lot of RPCs. Some of them are slow, and aggregate them, give the user a better. They're like a bunch of projects. You can build something like Metric, a great project. If you haven't seen it, it lets you link your wallets and then connects to Telegram, Discord, things like these. Does verification. Yeah, there are like a lot of use cases. Things like these. But yeah, a lot of Web3 will come on the channel now. So there will, I'm sure, be a video projects to build which you can just look at. All right. More than 6 years of experience looking for a job. There was no question there, but yeah, the advice remains the same like anyone else. Build a lot of projects and build them yourself. Will Sohan teach C++ when? Probably he will. I'm unsure when, though. I'll have to ask. Is it okay build projects from seeing tutorials for JavaScript mastery? Please answer. Initially, it is. It's totally fine for you to look at problems from tutorials and answer them. There's no need for you to code it yourself. In fact, you cannot code it yourself initially. But at some point you need to eject out. So just keep that in mind. At some point you're able to code it yourself, else you'll be stuck in the very common term called tutorial hell, which it doesn't lead anywhere. There are a lot of videos on it. Yeah, cool. All right, guys. I think I'll call it here. My Wi-Fi is very dilly um, and it's 8:30. We did not take a break, and pretty much mostly all I had for the orientation. I will see you guys next week when we will be doing a bunch of ad hoc, not ad hoc, follow the tutorial. A lot of questions. Wow. Okay, we'll take one more round of questions. I have two commits on the toaster PR. Please check. I will. Um, I will eventually, maybe after the class. Any timeline of Web3 cohort? I am unsure yet. It's depends on if people want it right now after the 1 to 100 cohort. My personal commitments. So we will see. Off topic. Off topic. Okay, last set of questions here. A bunch of questions from Notion Docs. Two doubts. I'm working on a multi-vendor e-commerce application similar to Dukaan. Got it. It consists of a main website for browsing seller stores, a seller dashboard, an admin dashboard, and an onboarding platform for new sellers. Okay. All these platforms are managed on a single Node.js server. Sounds okay. I have two questions regarding this infrastructure. Firstly, considering I have deals with 16 sellers and each seller will have minimum 400 users, what RAM or what VM should I rent on AWS, leading towards DigitalOcean due to cost? Firstly, your admin slash seller dashboards should be a separate backend, and your user facing backend should be separate. Why? Because it's highly unpredictable. When user load comes on a specific website, it is very predictable. People are not a lot of merchants. They're not opening the website too much. You probably need a single machine, throw it away. For the user side, you need auto scaling. If you have 16 customers and one customer gets a lot of users, other customers ideally shouldn't get affected, right? So at the very least, you should auto scale your user side. And for that, does not matter, choose a simple on AWS, maybe like a T3 medium or a T3 large, or an X class, maybe like basically 16 GB. With 16 clients, I'm assuming you can afford that much, but make sure you're auto scaling it. If the CPU requirement goes above 50%, make sure another server starts up. DigitalOcean does not let you do auto scaling very easily, from my knowledge, from up until 2 years ago. But you can use a Kubernetes cluster that auto scales there. So create a Kubernetes cluster in DigitalOcean. Have minimum number of nodes as 2. Have maximum number of nodes as 20, and Sorry, Wi-Fi went away. Can you share more resources? Go to Colosseum website. There will be a resources section. It has everything. All right, guys, let's call it here. Sorry about that. Happy New Year. Same to you. Another pull request to look at, a Notion doc. See Daisy, let's see. Okay, let me pause that here. Chainlink hackathon. Haven't heard of this one. Like the hackathon, I haven't heard of. Error in setup. DB seed has an error, hash ID, this thing, unique constraint fail on the ID. You already have your data seeded. You already have a bunch of tracks. What you can do, who asked this? Subhas, clear your database and then, restart. Cool. All right. Chainlink hackathon, we are happy something. I'm working remotely in India. I have a good hold on Modern Next and create projects. This thing I'm looking for remote earn in dollars. Can you suggest some roadmap? There are like a lot of videos on my channel. Roadmap remains the same. Okay, if you already are pretty good, reaching out to founders on Twitter, underpricing initially and then overpricing is the way to go. I'm not sharing my screen. So yeah. Also Superbase is organizing a hackathon. Yeah, bro, they're paying a lot of money. Looking at a website to convert Notion doc to PDF. I got hanged after you said that you were looking for. I'm not looking for a website. Oh yeah, so yeah, I was looking for a website. I saw the website that did something like this, but charged like $20 a month or something like that for it. So you can build SaaS like these for someone who was asking. I've converted Notion to PDFs. All right. Looking at something. PDF it was 0 to 1. I don't think there are any like, but like HTML CSS helps. Maybe some JavaScript also helps. Cool. Let's call it here, guys. Thank you. Have a good night. I will look at all the pull requests afterwards. Cool. All right. Bye. GN. Thank you, guys.